ClickerBait, the Last of Us TV show where 3 gamers come together to unpack the HBO show. And 3 of us have one thing in common. Wonder what it is. It's The Last of Us. It's our favorite game of all time, I think. Is it? It's my favorite game of all time. Oh,
yeah. Easy.
We also like the show. So we decided to, continue a show about the game and the show. And it's called ClickerBait. You're here. Welcome. So glad to catch you here on Monday nights. That's where we'll stay for a while, at least until the end of maybe the end of May.
Yep.
That's 3.
Sounds right.
There's 7 episodes. Yes. There we go.
I think the 27th is the finale. Maybe.
Wow.
Or like the 28th, something like that. I only know that because of travel.
And shoot, we might have a couple extra episodes after that to debrief.
We're probably going to have to.
I'll see you in June.
Just thinking ahead. So we're here. Hopefully all of you can hear us. I had some technical issues. What's new? I'm Jerica, so you should know we're going to have some issues. I was getting leaked. People could hear me talking smack.
Yeah. The things she was saying, I was scared.
It was bad.
And you look at that. You already introduced yourself. You are such a professional.
I'm so good at this job. I'm Jerica, one of the hosts.
And I'm Kayla, your other host. And what you should also do if you're listening after the fact is join our Discord. If you want to participate in our questions that we ask every week. And honestly, just like I imagine what I hope for is that in our Discord, we'll have discussion with you guys after each episode so we can debrief and then prep for our Monday breakdown of every episode. Because that is what the future will look like. Right now we're here and you may be like, why are we here? The season hasn't started yet. You still have like 2 weeks, brother. Don't worry. We love to yap about The Last of Us. So that is what we're doing. Patrick is joining us so kindly this season. And so he's going to, lead us through a discussion later. But if you're new, follow us on Discord. You can get the link through our website, which is our network website. If you haven't been there, dropindropoutpod.com. And that shows you all of our different things where you can find us all, including our Discord link. So let's go ahead and get in. I'm Kayla, like I mentioned, and Patrick, take us away. What is this episode today? What are we doing here?
Hello, everybody. My name is Patrick, and today, so here's the thing. When Jerica and Kayla so lovingly allowed me to join their show that they spent years crafting,
Yes,
then we started getting news. We started learning all sorts of things about season 2. And then we got a list of directors and a list of writers for only 7 episodes, which we're going to talk about a lot today. And one of those names piqued my interest, which I'll get to exactly what that name is when I start my presentation that I've put together. I was inspired once I saw all of these names to go, you know what? I want to try to crack the case. I put on my detective hat. I grabbed my magnifying glass. I went to 1,000 different places on the World Wide Web to craft an outline for season 2. Because the truth is, this game, once we learned about season 1 happening, by that point, the second game had already come out. The long debate has been, how are they going to tackle season 2? Because as we all know, which we're going to be getting into full spoilers.
Yes.
As we all know, there is a bunch of timeline stuff in the second game. So
it's like
only
Lost.
Exactly. Which won't be the last time we talk about Lost today, Jerica. And so I put together, she's getting something. I put together a presentation and I spent way too much time on this.
Hell yeah.
Tell me you love it and everything that I do, or I'll cry.
I know I'm interrupting, but I love Lost. This is a picture of John Locke. My friend got me.
Because we're unveiling art, I'll unveil my art that's a lot worse. It's right here. I ordered a print of the Frank painting of Bill from episode 3.
I forgot you had that too.
And if you're watching live, you might think, oh, wow, that looks just like it, because it is just a replica print. But what you can't tell by looking at it is that this is just like what looks like an iPhone photo blown up to like a 16 by 14. And it looks so bad in person. So won't be hanging that up.
Support your local artist.
Yeah, I gave him 2 stars on Etsy. But yeah, so I've put together a big old presentation, and I'm going to essentially pitch to y'all what I think is going to happen in season 2. So, Jerica, what do you say we go to slide 1?
Oh boy.
Let's go. And we but for the record, none of us have seen this. Patrick has kept this under lock and key away from us so that we don't even know what his thoughts are. So that is exciting to me. And then we'll all just kind of share around the horn like what we're all thinking. And please feel free to also drop your thoughts in the chat.
Yes.
Kind of like Leanne Weaver, who just subscribed.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh. Thanks.
And Weaver,
Wow.
come on down.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Return visitor. I remember you coming last week, so very excited to hear what you think about season 2 as Patrick takes us away.
Yes. Season 2. What's the fwickin' deal?
God.
This is a presentation asking tough questions. Next slide, please.
Wow. Oh.
I'm controlling the slide. So here's the thing. We all agree. Last week, we spoke ad nauseum about how much we loved season 1. We talked about our favorite moments. We talked about the few least favorite moments we had, but ultimately we all thought it was a banger. I think, and I stand by, it's probably my favorite video game adaptation to any other medium so far. So season 1, they nailed it. So now the question is, can season 2 nail it? And if so, how? Because in the first game, or the first season, excuse me, they did the entire game and its DLC Left Behind in season 1 and only 9 episodes. And honestly, one of my only criticisms of season 1 is that it felt too short. It felt like even though they did a lot of really good shit in there, they easily could have had like 3 more episodes of the show. But there's been a bunch of interviews since the first season of like Craig Mazin, the director and show creator, being like, we only had so much budget. Season 1 was very much just proving ourselves to HBO. They have so much more money now. They have so much more leeway with season 2 and beyond for HBO. But now we're only getting 7 episodes of season 2. And now they've already been on the record saying we're going to have at least 1 more season. They're going to, I bet when we get to the end of season 2, season 3 is going to be renewed immediately. I think my first prediction is that when season 2 ends, very soon after we find out if season 3 is the final season. Or if it's going to be like season 3, it comes in a few years. And if they don't say it's the final season, then I think we're getting 2 more seasons.
2 more. Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Because they've said they have essentially said it's either going to be 3 or 4 seasons total. Yeah. It just depends on how much. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. I align with that.
Yeah.
We are aligned. I'm probably jumping ahead, but I'm just wondering, like, if we're talking seasons, story of seasons mentioned.
Yep, mentioned.
If we're talking seasons, like how, for you guys personally, like us both, like originally starting with playing the games and then going into the show. I know that a piece of news that has came out that we might touch on later is that we won't be seeing another Last of Us game anytime soon.
Right.
Would you want to experience an extension of the story for the first time as a visual medium instead of a game? So, like, if they come out with new content extending the story, but it's only in the show form and not in the game form yet, like, how would you feel about that?
It depends on how season 2 goes.
Sure.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to have to stretch this a little further than we like. And, I think a lot of that, I can't wait to get into our episode breakdown to see how much they spread it out. But honestly, like, if someone said it was going to be this or that, I'm like, I would 100% would rather experience that in the game. But I won't be upset if that ends up being more of a show. I don't know if Neil does that. I don't know if they do that.
So there have been a few interviews in the lead up to season 2. One of the most notable ones from South by Southwest, the is it a conference? No, I guess it's a festival. It's a festival. When they did a lot of kind of pre-press for this, but leading up to the premiere, which was last week. And they have said they're not going to go past the games, but it's also kind of what they'd have to say, right? Like, they're not going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to go past, because like that all of a sudden has so much of an implication on games and like, so, but at the same time, both of them are saying it in their own ways. And Craig Mazin's like, I feel like the game does a really good job of telling its story, so I'm not really interested in doing more than that. But like, if HBO is like, knock, 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 here's $100 million, I'm sure he's going to be like, oh, all of a sudden I have an idea. So
Yeah, I know I would. I'd be like, yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Mrs. HBO, let's do this right
Yeah.
now.
For sure. So my first question, and I think I know the answer for all three of us. 7 episodes. Is that enough time to tell like what? Because we know the games like the back of our hands, or specifically the second game. Do you think that 7 episodes is enough time? I think no.
I think it could be depending on where the season ends. Like, I say yeah. I think so. It's a bummer because I always want more episodes, but I think it's enough to get us to whatever they see as a natural breaking point. So,
Kayla, what do you think?
See, here's the thing, and this may be spoiling you guys on my thoughts about where I would like the direction of the season to go, but I don't think it's enough time for what I would like to see out of the season.
Okay. Well, what we're going to be seeing a lot of potentially is Abby, because it's Abby season for season 2. A new character for people that don't know the games. But if you don't know the games, you shouldn't be listening to this.
You should not be listening.
At least not yet. Maybe after the season is over.
Yeah, if you're watching in the future. Hello.
yeah,
Yeah, hello.
Don't go listen to whatever show Troy Baker's on for HBO. You
Right.
need to come to us. We're the best show. Troy Baker might be the voice of Joel, but my name's Jerica, and
does
I
he
love
know?
talking about The Last of Us on twitch.com or twitch.tv
Oh, God.
/JK Games Podcast. Okay, I'm done.
Don't go to twitch.com. I don't know what that
I
is.
don't know. Yeah, don't do that. Sorry. I interrupted. I apologize.
No. Please interrupt me all you want. But it will be noticed on your final grade at the end of the semester. Yeah. How much Abby do you think we're getting this season? Do you think so? The timeline question, which we're going to be talking about a lot, so we don't necessarily have to go super in depth here. But do you think we're going to be getting only a little bit of Abby, like toward the beginning of the season, and then we don't see much of her? Do you think they're going to pepper her more throughout? Kayla, where's your head at on that?
Oh my gosh. I think they've shown her in a lot of promotional photos in a lot of the trailer. Like, she definitely has some focus on her. Like, she's definitely been very active at their red carpet events. I think we see a lot of Abby. I think Heroic Headgear actually has a good point in the chat saying, I could see it going in reverse order and the season being Abby's side first. I do think that is possible.
No chance.
You don't think so?
No chance.
Okay. All right. I think that we see a lot of her. I don't know. I haven't fully decided on how I think realistically, how I feel like the order of the season is going to go. And I'm hoping to, as we take our journey through the season, to have more of a thought. But I think we see a lot of her regardless, like a lot.
The only reason I say no chance to what Heroic Headgear says is we've actually not seen a lot of Abby in the trailers and stuff.
You don't think so?
No, so I went through all the different trailers again in preparation for this, and especially the most recent one where it's like 2.5 minutes or whatever, and it's like a lot of the season. Abby's in like 6 seconds of that trailer. It's all Ellie stuff, and like her side of the timeline. Now, are they just hiding that from us? Maybe, but I was shocked at how little Abby like we've actually seen in the trailers so far.
See, I don't know why I felt differently, but maybe I should have. I didn't refresh the most. I've seen the trailer many times, especially the last one, but like I didn't watch it right before this. But I do think that they're being intentional with her, and I think that we do see her a decent amount of time. I would say, Jericho, what do you think?
Yeah,
I'm not going to get into for the scale of how I think things will shake out this season, because I'm sure you naturally get us there, Patrick. But I think half of the time we spend time with Abby. That's all I'm going to say right now. Half of the time.
Half the time, half and half. Okay.
I'm not going to say when or where or why yet, 'cause I'm sure that will come up.
A question I want to put a pin in, because I want to start getting into the specifics of the conversation. But, the shows like this like to change little things here and there. Mm-hmm. Do we think the golf club is involved? Do we think that is sacred?
Yes.
It has to be.
That's one of those.
It has to be.
I know how sad it is and traumatic,
Yeah.
But like there's certain moments from the game, like I think it's just as iconic as the draft scene, and you just can't change it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think I have to have a product placement for our mailbag segment from You've Got Mail. From our listeners. We asked and you answered, what does season 2 need to be perfect? And our lovely listener, not so famous Jameis, did say that fun activities for Ellie and friends. Maybe some rec sports, perhaps golf. That's what we need for it to be perfect.
So maybe instead of that scene, they just play golf. Like friendly game.
Maybe it's like a nod. Yeah.
Sure.
I think they have to leave it in. I think that it would be upsetting to fans if you don't. But also the brutality of it, I think, is very important.
It's going to be even worse. I think it's going to be even more brutal.
We're going to see brains. Okay, let's jump into when I start getting into real specifics. The next couple slides is really what spurred this entire thought experiment that I went on here. So let's look at all of the directors for this season. So there's 7 episodes. One director for each episode, as is typically customary for TV. And this is in order of the season. So episode 1 is going to be Craig Mazin. If you don't know Craig Mazin, he's the one, he directed Chernobyl. He created Chernobyl for HBO and then is the showrunner and creator of The Last of Us HBO in, co-production with Neil Druckmann. Only thing that he's done, Last of Us related in terms of directing was the pilot. He didn't direct anything past the pilot of last season. So he's doing the pilot again, which, as a quick side note, I was reading an interview with him and I thought was super interesting that that's like a very specific structural thing that he does that he got, inspiration from now I can't remember the other guy that he got it from, but essentially it's like he writes every single episode, but he only directs the first one as a way of like kind of setting the course for the rest of the season, and then as the writer for the rest of the season is very much like in constant collaboration with all the directors throughout. But I thought it was very interesting.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So my expectation, which we'll get like more in depth with specific episodes, but my expectation this is a very Jackson heavy episode. We'll probably get a lot of kind of expanding on Jackson. We know that this one, we'd have its time and its title, which again, I'll get to. But I feel like this will kind of be our entry point back into the season. Mark Mylod, directing episode 2. He is the name that got me going on this whole thing. For those of you that might know the name or might not, he is a big director for Succession, which is another HBO show. It won countless Emmys, and specifically, if you've seen Succession, he's done so many of the biggest episodes of Succession. I'm not going to spoil anything Succession-wise because this isn't a Succession podcast, but if you know Succession, if you watched it, Connor's wedding, which is in season 4, which a lot of people put in its own kind of category on par with the Bill and Frank episode as being one of the greatest episodes of television of all time. He directed that episode as like an idea of the kind of director he is. His track record is like unstoppable. He's done Game of Thrones. He's done a bunch of other shit that's really good. And so it's like them bringing in Mark Mylod is them saying, hey, so like, I think episode 2 might be when it happens, but we'll get there. Episode 3, Peter Hoare, he's the guy that did not Left Behind. He did the Long Time episode, the Bill and Frank episode of last season. Also in the episode 3 slot. I find that very interesting.
That is interesting.
Maybe this is going to be a big Eugene episode.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it. Episode 4, Kate Herron. Kate Herron is a director I didn't know a ton about, but she was the showrunner for season 1 of Loki.
We stand women.
We stand women in this podcast and in the world.
First season of TV too.
For sure. I love Loki. And so something that really jumped out to me is that Loki also very much about time funk, all sorts of jumping around in time. Oh, interesting. Isn't that kind of the whole thing about part 2 of The Last of Us? Wondering if episode 4 is a flashback heavy episode. We'll see. We'll get there. Could be museum stuff, could be hotel stuff when Ellie and Joel fight the bloater. We'll get there. We'll see. Jumping to episode 5, I said earlier, we're going to get Lost. We're going to talk about Lost. Stephen Williams, famed Lost director. Now, it's been years since I watched Lost. I watched Lost all through the pandemic. like at the height of the pandemic. So I remember
Perfect.
a lot about the show, but I don't remember like super specific episodes other than like a couple of the really, really big ones. He didn't direct any of those, but he did direct a lot of Lost, which another timey-wimey show. We're jumping all over the timeline in Lost. I'm sensing a trend, Kayla.
Yeah.
He also directed in Westworld, and he directed in Watchmen, the HBO miniseries. And what's the episode of Watchmen he did? The one that's a big flashback, all in black and white, if you know, you know.
Ooh.
A lot of interesting flashback stuff here, Jerica. I'm sensing trends. Episode 6, Neil Druckmann's going to direct. This is also the first episode of the season that Craig Mazin doesn't write solo. That Neil also writes this one, and Hallie Gross, co-writer of part 2, also writes this episode. This one was very difficult to figure out. And so I'm very interested to hear what y'all think about this, because also we have a really interesting quote from Hallie Gross about this episode that has kept me up at night trying to figure out what episode 6 is. But I think I've landed on something. We'll get there in a second. And then the finale of season 2, directed by Nina Lopez Corrado. She is, of all the directors, the one that I knew the least when I looked through her filmography. She's done some other HBO stuff. She did Perry Mason and The Nevers, episodes of it, not the whole thing. And then she did like a bunch of Supernatural. I don't remember how many episodes, but a lot of it. So this was especially tough for me. It just, in the like, I think of Stephen Williams, I look at his thing as like, a lot of flashbacky stuff. And his history, maybe that's, we're getting some flashback stuff in episode 5. So it's like unsure about episode 7, but I have some theories. We'll get there. Any questions, thoughts, or concerns about the 7 directors of season 2 of The Last of Us?
I'm so ready to get into it. I'm not talking into the mic up there. I'm ready to get into it. I'm so excited. I'm a little backwards on a couple things now that you brought this up. But I can't wait to predict what we think is going to happen.
Hell yeah. Kayla, any final thoughts before we jump into specific episodes?
No thoughts, except that I'm very impressed with you and your research and your presentation skills, as is the chat. Speaking of Leanne Weaver saying good thinking on the episodes based on the career stats. And then we've already got some predictions going in the chat about Heroic Headgear says they feel like in their gut, the Druckmann's episode is going to be the Seraphite focused one. Ooh, interesting.
Okay, we'll see.
But yeah, I'm ready to dive in.
Let's jump into it. Or first, maybe we fuck up the timeline and go out of order, just like the game. What the fuck is the timeline for this season? Let's start there.
Is that intergalactic?
So yes, that is, I forget her name
that is a
right
joke,
now.
because she's going to be in the show too, but she's also the main character for Intergalactic.
Very good. So these are all screenshots from a couple of the different trailers. WTF is the timeline. See how instead of the WLF, it's WTF on his helmet? How about that? How about that, Jerica? I did that just for you, Jerica.
That's impressive.
Hell yeah. I'm all torn up about this timeline, because in the trailers, like, we're seeing things like top left, fucking the last moment of the game, Joel on the porch. Playing guitar? Who's
to say, though, do we get to the conversation, or we just see him looking out, being like,
maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. So yeah, I have questions. So let's jump into it. Episode 1, Future Days. This is the only one we have a title for. Knowers know that Future Days is the song that Joel teaches Ellie at the beginning of the game.
God.
So, as I said, director, writer, this one's Craig Mazin. I assume we're going to get the game's intro pre the 4-year jump, which I think I remember reading that they've changed it to be 5 years or 6 years instead of 4 years. I think 5.
I think it's 5.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
So assume at the beginning, we probably start with him talking to Tommy like they do in the game, saying what he did in Salt Lake. As we see bottom left, this is from the most recent trailer with the guitar, teaching her future days. So that's probably going to be at the top of this episode, I would think. We've also learned that Catherine O'Hara is playing Eugene's wife and also Joel's therapist. So this feels like something we would see in episode 1. because I expect we're going to be getting a lot, as I was saying earlier, when we were going through the directors, episode 1 probably expands a lot on Jackson. They open up the most recent trailer with Joel holding Tommy and Maria's kid and like pointing out things on the map. They do some trickery with some of the dialogue. Some of that's not Joel if you're listening closely. I still can't figure out who it is. But so I think we're going to be getting that. I think we're probably going to meet new characters around town. Maybe we get the tattoo bit with Ellie here because we know that her girlfriend and tattoo artist is in the show now.
Yes, has been
which
cast.
wasn't in the game, but is going to be shown on screen. I definitely think that happens early on.
Yeah, I think if not episode 1, episode 2, but I don't know that there's going to be time in episode 2, and we'll get to it. And then I also think that we probably by the end of the episode, because we're going to meet Abby in some capacity, First episode, I think we have to meet Abby.
Okay.
I think we get a little bit of, like in this middle image here, I think we get a little bit of her and her crew finding that cabin that they stay at the very beginning of the game. Some sort of, maybe they don't give answers as to who she is, because you kind of don't get answers for a minute in the game either. But her, she's looking for Jackson. We don't really know why, that kind of a thing I would expect. But then also part of me wonders, could they just cold open with an Abby flashback and just throw us right in to getting Abby? You don't think so, Kayla?
No, I hope
agree.
not. I don't want that, because I hope that they make you wait to find out who she is and what her connection is until a little bit later, just because that's what they did with us. And I just feel like the impact would really be important for that, because it was so important and crucial in the game. There was nothing like me talking to Jerica and being like, man, who's this Abby girl? We're playing as her. She seems cool. What is this? And then being like, what the fuck? And it just having that realization. Though I do think it would be probably a cool shot with that cold open. And maybe there's something like that. It's alluded to who she is, but the people who don't know, and the people who know. Maybe something like that. But I hope that they don't do that in the beginning. I think you get her early on, but I don't think you get her backstory until later. Yes,
I agree. I do agree. Also, High School Weekly, I see your question. We'll get to it in the next episode. And then I kind of feel like with this episode, we probably at least start Ellie and Dina going on patrol at the beginning of the game, which... With that, it's a pretty big section of the opening part. And there's a couple different screenshots from the trailer that kind of suggest those parts of the opening segment of the game. I only have one here of them on Shimmer and the other horse whose name I don't know. Right. But I feel like episode 1 ends with them kind of going on patrol, getting that started, so that we can get to season 2 or episode 2's kind of action a little faster. But kicking to y'all, Jericho, let's start with you. Anything here doesn't feel right to you? Anything I'm missing for episode 1?
No, I just thought about something though, where you're like, hey, do you see it cold opening to just Abby what she's going through? I think the first shot is I think it's instead of Joel and Tommy talking, it's going to be him and the therapist gal. I think that's going to be how the episode starts, because it's immediately helping you remember, okay, what was the crisis at the end of season 1? Where were the characters at mentally? And just to see that maybe we see a time jump, maybe that's the first thing that is shown, and then we hear their conversation and know oh, a lot of time has passed, but this is still weighing on him. I definitely think Abby's group set up in this episode as people we don't trust. I know the game we're oh, new character, or we get to be playing as this whole other person. How are they going to be interwoven into the story? But I think they're immediately set up as someone that's coming in to do something bad, but we don't know yet.
That makes sense. I can get behind that.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they're, because the famous cold open of season 1 with the guy from The Mummy talking about the Earth getting warmer.
What if we get something like that?
So I wonder if we get something cold open that's new, that's not just the Catherine O'Hara conversation, because that is a good call of it changing.
I forgot, but I don't know. I don't know if they'll do that, because I really don't need to set the stage for what caused the virus this time, or the infection. True. It could be something different. I'm trying to think what that could be though. Like what could do the same thing?
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be nice. I don't know.
We'll find
What
out.
if it's something about like what the Fireflies were trying to do, or maybe like something to do with like like the experiment? I don't know, like something to do with that, like a tie back.
I'm sorry, I didn't. That made me think like it could be the just ramifications of what Joel did like immediately after. That's how they start.
Could be. Yeah. I also think it could be like a soft introduction to the WLF and the Seraphites. And it's like the kind of thing where we don't necessarily see that for a few episodes, but it's like, oh, all of a sudden there's these two new factions and, just, we'll get answers, but.
Brand new stuff. If you've watched only the first season of The Last of Us, this is like, whoa, who are these groups? Yeah.
Or because an episode that I don't think we necessarily get too much this season, or not an episode of character, but the martyr of the Seraphites that is dead in the game. I forget her name, but I wonder if like that could be an interesting cold open potentially.
Yeah.
Oh God, what's her name? I don't remember. I'll look it up.
Maybe that's a season 3 cold open. But yeah, I agree with High School Weekly. Seraphite cold open out of nowhere would be cool.
That would be really cool.
Okay, let's jump to episode 2, Untitled. We still don't know the title. But as I said earlier, we do know that this one is being directed by Mark Mylod. So I think this episode probably starts with more Ellie and Dina patrolling. I briefly mentioned this last slide. We saw a little bit of this in the last trailer. I think they wanted us to think it was Abby in the like Home Depot type place at the beginning of her side of the game, but the more I looked at it, I think it's like when they're on the patrol at the beginning, they go into like a gas station and there's like a little bit of a fight there. I think it's from that, which at one point was on this slide as one of the 3 images, but it ended up getting subbed out. But I feel like potentially they get to Eugene's here. Because something that I'm really struggling with between episodes 2 and 3 is Eugene. Because I feel like they probably introduce him in some capacity in the first episode. But because as we know, Eugene's place is where Ellie and Dina are before Jesse comes and finds them to say, hey, Joel's missing. That he's the guy that has all the weed in his basement, who's been dead in the game, who is not dead in the show yet, at least. So maybe we get a little bit of Eugene stuff here, but I feel like this episode will be quite action packed with this new scene that they show in the trailer bottom left here of the thousands of infected coming up against the walls of Jackson. I feel like that's probably here. And then, somehow Joel and Tommy end up getting lost in the blizzard. Maybe they have to run out of Jackson or something. I feel like they're going to probably change a little bit of them being on patrol instead of like somehow it's this related to this in some capacity.
Well, we did see that. Like there's still like Dina and Joel like both on horses, like they're patrolling together.
That's true.
So, like,
that's a good point.
How does
they get separated?
Because like you never see Dina and Joel together. You never really get to see them interact. So it's interesting to see that maybe some things are getting combined, or this is even the attack on Jackson here of 2000, I don't forget what year we're in, the attack of Jackson 2033. Making a joke about history here. That's going to be in history books. But, like why is that happening, and does that bring Abby into what's happening in Jackson sooner?
Sure. Yeah. Last season, when the season was over, I remember there being interviews with Craig Mazin of like, why wasn't there more combat? And they're like, we'll do it next season. Yeah. And then this very much feels like this is an answer to that. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like it doesn't necessarily make sense for it to be episode 1. It could be. I mean, hey, fucking maybe this is the cold open. Maybe it's like this happened. If we're doing a 5-year jump, maybe this is 2 years in, and it's just like to show time or whatever. But I feel like this episode, it likely is very much just Blizzard section of the game. Probably, Abby runs into Joel. They've shown in some of the trailers the moment of them getting to the like in the ski resort of like where there's that little combat segment where there's the gondolas or whatever they're called that you take up a ski hill, fucking mountain, whatever. I can't find any of my words right now for some reason. Where like they get there and Joel ski lift, yeah. Joel slams the door shut. It seems like that's what that is.
Yeah.
And then the Abby running away from the horde, the fence kind of like crumbling down on her and her crawling through. Like I bet that's this episode. But I feel like in as much as I keep going back and forth, I don't think Joel dies this episode, but I think this is when it starts to happen. I think the episode probably ends with them, Abby and Joel and Tommy getting, or maybe Tommy's not even there for this. Maybe they changed that, getting to their crew and, when he says his name is Joel and they all kind of like shift a little bit and they're like, oh, wait a second. This guy just falls into our lap and then he's like, y'all act like you've heard of us or something or whatever he says. And then she shoots him in the leg with the shotgun. I feel like really good. We end the episode with Abby shooting Joel with a shotgun. So we don't know that he's dead, but so then there's a week to discuss among the group and for people to just spoil everything because they're assholes. But what do y'all think? Do you think episode 2 is when he dies or no?
Going into this, and Kayla, do you want to go ahead before I start talking about my thoughts and what I thought, now what I'm thinking?
I was just going to, we'll give it, I don't necessarily want to go. I want you to go next, but I do want to call out a couple of things in the chat really quick. First of all, thank you, Campos63 for subbing. Welcome. 23 months. Oh my gosh. Wow. Thanks. And then Game Over Cholo said, Ola, when are you doing a Last of Us Part 2 cosplay? But instead of the obvious ones, have Patrick be Ellie, Kayla be Dina, and Jerica Catherine O'Hara.
Don't have to tell me twice.
Very good.
But yeah, so that, and then you had praise for your Tommy impression. Take it away, Jerica.
Thank you.
All right, so I wasn't going to share what I thought the show was going to, the structure the season 2 was going to go until I've decided now, because I sort of thought it was too on the nose and sort of dumb. Because I'm not the most creative person, like with, I'm not making this story. But then I'm sort of going back on it now because I'm like, man, I feel like they're not going to jump to action this quick. Like, I think they're, they could just be showing this to trick us, but I'm like, I'm not 100% bought in, but I'm like 70% bought in that they're going to go in chronological order. And I know there's a lot of flashback directors and all this, lost people involved. Mm-hmm. But like, I could definitely see them like, once again, I think they got to build up that relationship that Joel and Ellie have a little bit more before they're just thrown to the wolves again. And you don't even get to have that build up in that relationship. Like, I think the museum scene has to be in episode 1 or 2. And that's not here.
Interesting.
And I think that's going to be shown early on. Also, Ellie burning her arm. And it's going to, I think the first episode would be more towards, I'm just rethinking because I'm going to go back with my gut. I think episode 1 is Ellie and Joel dealing with what has happened and the hurt. And why did she burn her arm? Like, and then got the tattoo and her going back to the hospital. I think that's all going to set up everything in first 2 episodes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Did we get linked for episode 1?
Sorry to throw a wrench in things, but that's
1 hour.
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw a wrench in anything, but
no.
And I might go back on that because I'm not 100% there, like I said. I want to keep going. Yeah. I want to keep going.
Initially, my kind of knee-jerk poke hole in it is how much of the later game we've seen in that, like, we've not seen, to my guessing, anything from day 3 and on of Ellie. And we've barely seen anything of Abby. We saw a little bit of flashback of her at the beginning, when she is in the hospital at the with that first flashback of hers, or maybe it's actually her second flashback when she finds her dad. And then we've seen her, like on this slide, we've seen her at the beginning in Jackson, but we've not seen really anything else of Abby so far. But I feel like my concern about pushing Joel dying back too far is when you think about like this, the structure of the story that they're telling, that is like the inciting incident of the second game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's like, they build up to it in the game. It's like about an hour and a half, 2 hours into the game. But, so I guess, but before I ramble, Jerica, if you were to throw a dart, when do you think Joel dies then? Are you thinking like late season?
Episode 6, 5 or 6. I think it's halfway or later. Yeah.
So then if it's episode 6 and we're getting a little, I think
you know more now, like of the structure than I do, but I don't feel like it's at the beginning. I used to think that.
So,
I don't think
sure.
so. I think it's going to hurt more the more time we spend with him.
Sure. Okay. So here, one idea I had that I kind of abandoned, but let's talk about it now.
Okay.
Is what if we don't, like, they start showing Seattle day one before we even know that Joel is dead. So they start, we're seeing Ellie and Dina going on this mission, but we don't understand why yet.
Yeah.
And they kind of, so they fuck up their own timeline where like they're chunking out things. And then episode 6 is when, because HBO is very famous for stabbing you in the heart in a penultimate episode of a season.
Yes.
So it could be that. It would be hard for them to maybe sell this arc of Ellie and Dina going out and Ellie seeking revenge without us understanding why yet, potentially.
I
don't know.
It could work.
Could be interesting.
It could work. I don't think so. It could work. I still think now I'm thinking, I think we're going to spend a lot more time with Joel and Ellie in the first 2 episodes than we think.
Okay.
And not a lot of Abby yet.
Sure. I definitely agree with not a lot of Abby in the first 2 episodes.
I think it's a lot of Jackson people, a lot of us are understanding the town. I think that's where we get, it keeps coming back to me. I think that's where we're seeing how Jackson like truly operates. Like there's a scene where they're like in a courthouse, like, just to really see how this civilization or like how this city is operating. Under Maria, which I think is going to be a much major character in the show, and Tommy too, and then the son. Like, where does he all fit in this? And
sure.
I think, and I just don't think you have enough. I don't think you have enough time to have us do all of that plus this in the first episode for sure. I don't know when this fight breaks out. I don't know when the big attack on Jackson.
Sure.
If I knew that, I feel like I could make a better guess of when the things happen, because I feel like that is definitely got to be close to that moment. It's got to be the attack on Jackson, not attack on Titan. The attack on Jackson has me messed up, because I'm like, this becomes a more chaotic event than Joel missing,
Sure. Well, so I guess, he and Kayla, I want to bring you in, but I think the one thing that makes me push back on it being that late in the season is just how much of the rest of the game we've seen. We've seen a bunch of Seraphite stuff. We've seen Ellie in the hospital with Nora, which is the end of day 2.
Yeah, that's not a whole lot of stuff, though. It's not.
Well, I'm not done. I'm still listening to stuff. We've seen them all over day 1 in Seattle. We've seen like her in the music shop with the guitar. We've seen some WLF stuff. Like, while that doesn't seem like a lot off the top, and as we go through, I think some of the images will also make me think of some more things. That would be a lot to pack into one episode of episode 7.
1 and 2. For when,
like, if Joel's dying in episode 6, then they should, they have to grieve. They have to do all this stuff in the house and her essentially have like the pseudo funeral for Joel, which I think happens next episode, which we'll get to in a second. And then she has to decide to go out to Seattle. She has to leave for Seattle. She has to get to Seattle. She has to, all of these things that we've seen little snippets of, unless that was like the beginning of episode 6. There's just not a lot of time to do that, unless they flip the timeline all over, and that's in like episode 4, and then we see Joel die later. I don't know. That's what, like, I've had a lot of trouble finding that myself with all of the different evidence we have of like, when the fuck is Joel gonna die?
Biggest question.
I think, and I've stood by this since the beginning of time. I think it either happens early or late. I think I don't think it's in the middle, which I say that, but now with Patrick, you're very convincing with your pitches. I think it happens in episode 3. I think it happens either at the end of episode 2, which I know sounds crazy, but either at the end of episode 2 or the end of episode 3. And I think
I'm gonna shut up. Sorry.
No, it's okay. This is what we're here to yap. This is literally what we're here for. It's so funny how we were like, oh, is this enough to do a whole episode for? We were literally on episode 2 and we're almost an hour in.
Yeah, bad idea.
No. It's a great idea. I love it. But I think that part of what the audience needs to feel, and I know that the argument it makes sense that like we need a little bit more time with them. And that's why I think the whole episode of episode 1, for the most part, is sitting in the hurt that Ellie feels and that the kind of like brokenness of their relationship now.
Sure.
And I think that part of what makes his death so heart-wrenching is that there's not the opportunity to mend things with them. And I think you need to feel that. And I think that the only way that you feel that as intensely is it happening earlier on in the season. Because if you go the whole season of them kind of like seeing them operate in the same space, you're like, okay, well, they even if they don't mend things, which they shouldn't, because that's not how it works in the game, like you get to see them more together. And I think you need that emotional gut punch of like they didn't get the chance to even like.
But to push back on that a little bit, and I know Jerica wants to jump in too.
We
don't
notes.
know that until toward the end of the game. That like, so when he dies at the beginning of the game, we know that their relationship has been turbulent, but we don't know about her going to Salt Lake and finding out about that Joel lied to her until day 2. We don't find out about, I mean, literally the last bit of the game is when she goes to him on the porch and is like, I'm willing to try to forgive you.
Yeah.
And because, you know, and he has the great line of like, if the Lord gave me a chance to go back and do it all again, I wouldn't change a thing, or however he says it. And so then you go back into a playthrough of the second game and all that dialogue of what I think would happen in episode 1 of her, oh yeah, we're going to watch a movie tonight. First time we've watched a movie together in a long time. Like all those things are like, we finally hear from her that she wants to give him a chance and try to mend their relationship right before he dies. So like, we don't know that yet until the end.
That's true. I think that changes. I'm saying it now. Okay. I think we get a little bit of that earlier on than you would in the game. I think that would make for a better show experience.
Sure.
Is that you do get a little bit of that earlier on than you would in your playthrough game. Because I kind of am a little blurry on it's been a while since I've played.
Yeah.
Which I plan on playing before. No, I'm not going to be able to finish the whole thing, but I want to play it a little bit more recent to when we're watching it to be able to be fresh. But I think that we get a little bit more of those nuggets of like pain early on. And then I'm solidifying. I think that the death happens in episode 3. That's my final answer.
I agree that the death happens in episode 3. Before we jump to episode 3 though, Jerica, do you have anything to add before?
No, not right now.
Right now.
I took my notes.
Okay, well, let's go to episode 3. So, as I said earlier, this is the episode that Peter Hoare's directing. He also directed episode 3 of season 1, which is the Bill and Frank episode. So, Craig Mazin has been on record saying that they're going to take some detours this season, which is him referencing. Someone basically asked him, are you guys going to have a Bill and Frank episode? And he said, we're going to take detours. It just won't be as long as a Bill and Frank detour. So, maybe we get a little bit of Eugene stuff here. These kinds of shows, I think of like a Better Call Saul or a Breaking Bad, where like something really traumatic happens to end an episode, and then we don't get an answer for like 30 minutes, or an entire episode. So maybe we start the episode not immediately addressing that Joel just got shot in the leg. Regardless, I expect there to be something unique and different about this episode because it's Peter Hoare in the 3 slot. It's just that's too many coincidences after he did the 3rd episode of season 1 to not do something different. But I wonder if, adjusting the timeline a little bit, if this is also when Jesse comes to Dina and Ellie at Eugene's, is like, hey, Joel's missing. They go out to find him, and then not ending the episode, but getting later in the episode to Ellie getting there. Golf club happens. which, you know, would make this episode a crier, just like episode 3 was last season. And then potentially, because I had to kind of fit this in somewhere, in the middle screenshot, we see the mailbox of Joel's house, which is right from the game of like when she goes there after, like the morning after he's dead. Feels like, again, could be like what you were saying earlier, Jerica, about the porch. Maybe this is like them kind of throwing us off the scent. Maybe that's not what this is, but thinking that maybe this is when she goes to his house and gets his coat and sniffs it and we all cry and all that kind of stuff.
I'm already crying.
Smells
but then it's like
coffee.
But then I get to this point, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about with episode 2. It's like to almost be halfway through the season and we're only getting to this feels too late already. Like it feels like this should have happened last episode, but there's just so much to happen. What do y'all think about episode 3?
Jerica, you go first. I went last.
Oh, no. I don't care. I don't have too many thoughts on this one, to be honest. Like because like I agree with everything you said here, Patrick. I feel like this is gonna definitely be the Eugene episode. Like that has to be the character you spend more time with.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's to say Eugene's not dead in the current timeline, you know?
Sure, could be.
So
That'd be interesting.
Maybe this is how they tackle some of those flashback situations. Like this is where we meet Kat and, you know, Ellie's getting her tattoo. Maybe that's why he was still alive. Maybe he died after.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just trying to. I'm all mixed up because I'm trying to figure out where all the flashbacks are going to start making sense. But I think this is like you have more experience with me. Like if this person is more likely to direct the weird episode that doesn't make. That's
just a guess.
And it's just a theory. Who knows?
Yeah.
Like
I'm saying it's better than anything I got for episode 3. We know this one's going to be here somewhere, so sure, this makes sense. Where
if you look at the bottom left screenshot of Eugene with Joel in the background, in the trailer right after this moment, it's Joel wearing that same jacket, like holding his rifle. And it looks, he's in a physical stance that looks like he's about to lift his gun. Maybe they make it to where Joel kills Eugene for some reason.
Oh.
Maybe he's been bit here. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, or maybe they're just trying to throw us off the scent and make me come up with this theory based on nothing because I'm a psychopath.
I like that even more because like now Joel's got to stare at his wife and know that he had to shoot him.
Yeah.
Also,
Kayla, how about you?
I agree that I think that this is the episode where they decided to do something a little bit different. I think it makes sense for the pacing and for who is directing it. You know, something that came to mind that I can't just let pass me by that I don't know would make sense for it being this episode, but hear me out. What if our Bill and Frank version this season is a little bit more behind the curtain of Dina? Maybe we get more of her as a character.
As a hope and dream.
I would love that because her and her sister and like a little bit more about her backstory, kind of like what you get, what is it, in the church scene where they talk about like her background. Like what if we get a little bit, I don't know that it makes sense here in this episode, especially with what we know with Eugene. And like, I don't know if we could do both of those things, like get that background of him and of her.
Yeah.
But I think like it would make sense to have her a little bit more buy-in on her and Ellie's relationship and maybe doing that in a way of like, because we already know that the freaking people are going to be the way that people are and you're going to have that. But I think maybe as far as like getting her a little bit more screen time would be something that they would do to have the basis of their relationship formed a little bit more and have you enjoy her as a character.
It could be episode 3. Just make them the gay episodes. Every third episode, The Last of Us just extra deep and extra gay.
Just 69 and Eugene's basement.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Somebody look it up. It's Peter Horgay. I want to know.
I also could see, so we've seen that shot of Joel and Ellie with her tattoo, which we think we already get, but you know, would make sense for this to be when we get the conversation with Ellie and Dina of her saying, you know, I'm immune and Dina not buying it and showing her the tattoo. And I don't remember how all that dialogue goes, but which then comes back later when she's like, no, I wasn't lying. I'm actually immune. But yeah, I don't know. I think this episode probably will make us cry a lot in some capacity, whether that's because of Joel or not.
Fact check: Peter Hort is gay. Just as FYI.
Let's go.
Well, yes, gay episode.
LFG.
If anything, episode 3 will be gay.
I love that.
Put that on the.
Put that on a shirt.
Somebody write that down.
Write that down.
On something. Put it on a shirt.
Okay, on to episode 4. This is the Kate Herron episode. So I wonder if this is our first really heavy Abby episode. So if I'm right that Joel, excuse me, if me and Kayla are right that Joel dies in episode 3.
That's right. Get it right. I'm going to either be really wrong or really right.
There's no in between.
You too. Also,
but I wonder if we don't get as much Ellie and Dina here. If it's like we finally learn Abby's connection to everything, which happens much later in the game, but maybe it makes sense to do that here. Get some more flashback stuff. Also, I saw High Score Weekly ask in the chat about Jeffrey Wright's Isaac when we're going to see him. I wonder if we're seeing a lot more of Abby here, maybe we start to see more of the WLF in general here. Maybe we get Isaac. So a moment from the trailer that I've not been able to find could be this episode, could be later in the season when Jeffrey Wright is talking to the Seraphite prisoner and the Seraphite is like, you're all going to die or whatever he says. I haven't been able to figure out where that falls. But I feel like what we do get of Ellie and Dina here, maybe it's the B plot of the episode, them leaving Jackson, getting to Seattle, and like some of day 1 in Seattle. I expect we lose a lot of day 1 in Seattle because a lot of day 1 in Seattle in the game is the open world section. It's going to the bank. It's like all those things that you don't necessarily have to do. It's going to the courthouse. It's going to whatever. High Score Weekly, it wasn't you. Maybe it was Heroic Headgear. It was an H somebody in the chat. But I think we probably get a little bit of that. And then, maybe we get the music store scene as shown on the presentation here. And then perhaps finding the movie theater in this episode, which again feels like we're covering so much ground, but we have fucking 7 episodes in this season, which is when. So in the game, they get to the theater right after Ellie and Dina are in the sewers or the subway system, and they get overrun by infected. Ellie's mask breaks. Dina thinks that she's gonna die, so she goes to like take off her mask, and Ellie's like, "No, I'm infected. See, I can't. I'm breathing in the spores." But spores aren't a thing in the show, so that's gonna be a change that I don't know how they're gonna do. But yeah, so maybe they have that conversation of, "I'm immune, Dina. I'm pregnant." Potentially this episode. Thoughts from y'all? Do they do that? Is she pregnant? Who knows? Am I pregnant?
They filled their kid quota already with Tommy and Maria's kid.
That's true.
They have to do it. It's just such a big part of like their arc and like they have to.
Yeah,
but that was like the evil version of me was like, do they do that? Interesting. Yeah, I agree. I think that this, if my timeline of what I think happens actually does happen, which part of me either thinks that it's the end of episode 2 or 3. I feel like 2 is too early. So I think I am sticking with 3. I do think like they leave us on the cliffhanger of for sure like Joel has died in the end of episode 3, and then they cold open with like Abby and who she is like in episode 4. And then you flash them and see like Ellie and Dina leaving Jackson in Seattle. I think you're right. I think a lot of ground has to be covered in episode 4, and I think it does. I do think there's a little bit, because if we're coming off of 2 action-packed episodes before this, I do think there's a little bit of meandering in this episode. Yeah. I think this one does feel a little middly, but I think it has to like have a little like come down, right, of like pacing, because if all of that does happen, like the infected like raid on the town in episode 2, Joel's deaths in episode 3. I think this is more of like we get a little bit of Abby and who she is, and then you have like we're in Seattle trying to survive and get to our destination. Sure. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
This is the episode Joel dies.
Episode 4, Joel dies.
Okay.
I've started putting it together in my head a little bit now.
I see your wheels turning. Tell us your thought process.
Well, I've gotten ideas from this, and this.
Yeah.
I just want you to know, Patrick, this is the most logical, makes the most sense presentation on what probably is going to happen. Like, if I had to put money down, like, I would go with this versus what's in my head, because I don't have specifics. But I'm like, what's gonna spread it up enough to where I still think they're gonna, I've gone back and forth, but I'm not gonna go back and forth on this anymore. I'm gonna trust my gut.
Yeah, trust the gut.
And I think they're gonna want to do something they elicited the same feelings from me playing the game, is putting me in Abby's shoes and just forcing me into it. But they got to really make me hate her. They build that up because they have to build up to, I still stand with like the first 2 episodes, Joel and Ellie, background story, chronological order with things, maybe not the on the porch conversation just yet, or maybe they do. I don't know. That's part of it. I don't have the specifics, so I can't answer it. But they're building that relationship up. We see the museum scene. I'm already now, they open with the museum story. Whoa.
Season 1, museum open, cold open.
It's where I met.
I mean, that would be iconic.
It's where I met. And you're like, maybe they worked it out. And then later on, you see Ellie still sort of upset about something, whatever.
Can I interject, or are you cooking? I don't want to interrupt.
I'm cooking. Only because I will lose my fucking thought.
No, yeah,
it's nothing on you. You know how my brain works. But they got to build that relationship between those two hard. They got to introduce us to Jackson. That gives us an opportunity to do that. Seeing Ellie when she's younger. Then they do a jump ahead. Don't know when. Don't know why or wow. Well, we know why. But time jump at some point before then. We are introduced to Abby. Don't know what episode. Maybe 3, maybe 2. We do get a sneak. I don't have the specifics, like I said. And then the reason I say it's in the middle of the season where Joel died is because after that we get Abby's side of the story for the rest of the season. And
the
that's
rest
where they
of the
get,
season,
and that's where we get brought into. It's gonna do just like the game. It's just like the game, where we get introduced to the WLF. We get to see that storyline. I think we get some, not all Abby, but more. I think you get sprinkle of Abby in the first part, and then you get sprinkles of Ellie in the second part, right? So you're just sort of seeing what both parties are doing. I don't know, make it work. Really good writers.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So then would you think by the split, like, have they gotten to the end of day 3 of Ellie, or they're
no?
Okay,
I don't know if we get to that in this season.
I don't think we do.
I don't think we do. But I think
what do we not get to? I'm sorry, I might have missed that.
The
day
theater.
3. Yeah.
Where they're at
yeah.
And
Ellie and Abby colliding.
And that's where Jesse dies, right?
That's where Jesse dies. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
a lot of people think that maybe is where the second season ends. I don't think so. I don't think we get there. That's too far.
I think we only learn for real, like, why the hell is that? I would love to question, and this doesn't really make sense without telling us the answers, but I want us to be mad at Ellie for doing dumb shit. I want us to be mad at Abby for making dumb shit happen, and us hate them both, but then, sort of get to see both sides. Keep going. I want to see where I land at the end of this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like a lot of what you're saying. And I do think you said that, like, mine makes the most logical sense. I don't know that that's true.
I think it does. It does to me. Makes more sense.
But I think, like, it makes, like, Ryan Selby joining us in the chat saying, like, what if they don't kill Joel? They're going to kill Joel, but, like, maybe it is a lot later in the season.
He's dying this season. We're all 100% on that.
But I do, I must push back, Jerica, on having the museum that early in the show. And the reason being, I think from my perspective, the museum scene works so well because it is the first time in, let's say, 10 hours that we're seeing joy, that we're seeing Ellie experience happiness and a happy memory. And because the reason, so that happens in the game, it happens at the end of day 1. So they've gotten to the theater, things are getting hectic. Yeah. She just learned that Dina is pregnant, and she gets pissed. She's like, why the fuck did you come if you're pregnant? Because now you can die. And then she grabs the guitar, she starts playing, and she reminisces on the museum. Because, my interpretation is she's fucking scared. She is still grieving, and she's like, I need a happy thing. So she thinks of the museum scene. So that, I feel like that happens. I think I have it happening in episode 5, maybe 6. I forget when. But that's why I feel like it happens later in the season.
Yeah, I'm wrong there. I'll go ahead and say incorrect.
Okay.
But I think I just disregard that segment. Everything else, so I still
everything else you stand by.
That was on the tip of my tongue. I was like, why I should say this. But shit, what if it happens? Y'all owe me
A hot dog.
A hot dog.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
Specifically boiled.
It's got to be boiled.
Turok Forever, first time chatter. Hello, welcome. So glad you're here. Agrees with you, Jerica, and says, I think Jerica's right. I think Joel dies in episode 4. I also think it's funny that we're like, oh yeah, we're two opposing forces. Jerica and me and Patrick think differently, but it's like one episode apart. Is what we think.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But to us, it's so important because like we're just big old nerds.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Leanne Weaver said the only thing I can say for certain about this season is that I'm going to need a lot of Kleenex. And that is so true. God. Absolutely, yes.
So true, bestie. Yep. Shall we go to episode 5?
Let's go. Because I might
episode
change my mind.
So I'm thinking that this is maybe we start to get a lot more Seraphite stuff. Maybe this is the first time we've really seen Seraphite stuff. There's that moment in the most recent trailer of there's like a Seraphite guy and likely his daughter, just a guess. Maybe we see whatever that storyline is. We also see this scene bottom left of someone being hanged, but it's not Abby, which doesn't happen this season, guarantee it. But I think this is probably them showing like this is something that they do. Because the only time we see that in the game is with Abby, but it makes sense that would be something that they do more so. But yeah, so I'm thinking maybe rest of Seattle day 1, potentially day 2 as well. And in day 1, because day 1 is so big, we get the TV station in day 1, and that's when Ellie finds out that I think it's Leah maybe in Abby's crew, which we don't really see much of. We just see her like she takes a little titty pic in the Polaroid that she leaves for whomever. And she's been killed by Seraphites, and then they get some information on the WLF there. So maybe we get that. And then also potentially we get Dina getting the radio built in the theater to start learning more about the WLF as well. Because like if we've not gotten a lot of WLF by episode 5, we got to by this point. Like it must be something by this because we see them with a tank in the trailer, we see them with their helmet in the trailer, like I have here. But this is another one of those ones where I had trouble figuring out episode 5 based on what happens around it. Because, there's more flashback stuff. There's the one at the hotel where they find the dead body of the firefly. I think it's a firefly. And I don't remember the exact point of that scene now that I bring it up, but it happens and they kill a bloater. There's also the flashback at the hospital, which I think is later in the season. But so there could be some flashback stuff. This could be like Ryan in the chat saying maybe they bring in more happy flashback stuff. Maybe we get some of that in episode 5. What about y'all? Oh, and also I think this is when Jesse gets into the picture of coming to Seattle and them teaming up to go find Tommy. I think that more so happens in episode 6, but I would think he gets in there by episode 5.
I'm going to be honest. I hope less Seraphites the better. Of any storyline, I could care less about them. I know they have to be a part of it, but I just don't care about their story. If it's going to be a whole episode dedicated to them, please make it interesting. Lev and Yara are the only ones that I cared about. Everything else with the Seraphites was annoying because I didn't like them killing me in the woods.
Sure.
But also, I don't care about their conflict. It was extra, and I was just ready for it to be over. So just hearing about them being in the show makes me like, it looks cool, but maybe I care about them in the show.
Interesting. I do. Well, first of all, thank you. Hello, Raiders from Jake
Whoa,
Twitchin.
Jake Twitchin raid. I'm just over here yelling about last episode. I didn't even notice.
I'm yelling about hating the Seraphites. Sorry if you're a Seraphite fan. I didn't like them. They got on my nerves.
I interesting because I do think like for me, I enjoyed that whole plot line in the game. I do think it derails a little bit from where we're going. Like I think it adds in some places. I think Yara and Lev give Abby a little bit of her humanity.
That's the only part
to the audience
that matters. The rest.
Yeah, I think that shows a little bit of like I think that's what kind of gives you a little bit of buy-in into Abby. And I think that you have to have that. I think you do get set up, of course, to hate her. But I think the whole point of the game and the message is like you do have to kind of like her a little bit too. And I think that you have to have that in this season if you are going through and killing Joel and doing the switch over and all of that. Which I think that does happen. And I think we do get some of the Seraphites. I don't think we get a whole lot.
I think that's a lot more season 3 Seraphite stuff.
I agree. Yeah, I do agree.
Thank God.
Yes.
I love the Seraphite stuff. I think it's such an interesting, like,
I think
in some ways it's a little what's the word I'm looking for? Sometimes it feels a little forced of like there's this conflict between these two factions.
Yeah, that's what I didn't like.
But I think they do a good job of like world building and like and making this corner of the country feel unique and like there's something different happening than we've seen before, of like there being, you know, it's a safe assumption that there's cults all over the fucking world in this timeline.
Right,
I mean, there is right now in our world,
now,
but but with this, like apocalypse, fucking no more technology shit working, like people, there's going to be cults. So like it's an interesting thing to see that here. But yeah, I feel like we probably see more of it next season.
Do you think, to answer your, like, are we going to be introduced to the leader of them or whoever they're worshiping or whoever? Because that was one thing that I would have liked from the game that I was interested in, was like, who is this lady that's drawn everywhere? Like, do we get to see any of that with her? Like, or is that something maybe they got to touch on it? Do you think they expand on that at all?
I feel like either we meet her and she's alive and maybe she dies in the season. Maybe we see that conflict happen at some point if there is like a bit of a spin-off situation, a detour as Craig calls it, or she kind of doesn't matter at all and it's just like because I mean that would feel like a bit of a drastic change because she's kind of like the heartbeat of the whole thing. But I could also see that being the like, you know what, this is a cult, they cut their faces, they whistle. That's all you need to know. I could also see them going that way of like, and you know, once we meet Yara and Lev, which I think happens season 3, I don't think they're in this season at all. Maybe we start to get more about their kind of like more about their really strict beliefs and that kind of thing, how conservative they are. Maybe we get that next season, but I don't know.
I think that's tough though, because I do think it makes sense to push them into season 3, but I think it's tough because I do think that they do add a lot of levity to Abby's character. I think they they stand on their own, but I think they add a lot to her. I don't know. But there's no way. We have 7 episodes. Like at this point, we're almost done. So I don't know. I do.
That's why I think they're
in
in the next season because I just don't think we get as much Abby this season.
Yeah.
I think they kind of ultimately when I asked what the fuck is the timeline of the season, I think it sticks pretty close to the game. I think we get mostly Ellie stuff this season. Next season we get mostly Abby stuff. You know, we finished the Ellie stuff because I don't think we finish Ellie's half of the timeline here, which you know we'll get to. But that's kind of my thinking. So I think we get a lot more Seraphite stuff next season because that's how it is in the game. We get that on the Abby timeline, not the Ellie timeline.
Good point. Yeah.
Any final thoughts before we go to episode 6?
Where can I bring up, because I don't want it to get lost and I don't want to save it to the end in case I have other thoughts. Are we going to talk about where the dance happens?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I won't talk yet then. Yeah. I'll wait.
Also, one final thought for me. I see Ryan in the chat saying, I'd like for them to expand on that. That being whatever her name is that was the leader.
I want to call her the Mother Seraphite.
It's like
Mother
Seraphite. Something.
She's giving mother. She's giving
whatever they call the starter or the mother vinegar stuff. We've talked about this on the show, Kayla. The mother. Have we talked about that?
I
don't like when they call it the mother. It's weird. Like a yeast or
and like apple cider vinegar. There's the
mother.
Like the mother thing. Yeah, the prophet. Oh yeah, they say she's a prophet. Yeah.
Thanks, chat.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Okay, episode 6.
That was great.
This is the Neil Druckmann episode. So I teased this at the beginning. I want to start with a quote. I didn't say where this came from, and I apologize for not citing my sources. But on the red carpet or on South by Southwest, I forget exactly where this was. Hallie Gross, who is the co-writer of the second game and also writes this episode and the next episode with Neil and Craig, said, I think there's something incredibly special for episode 6. I think 6 is a really beautiful story, and I'm really proud to have gotten to be part of it. She goes on to say that episode is really special because it really gets into the heart of what the show's about with characters that we love so much. Druckmann said before adding that he was looking to be careful about sharing too much. That said, Druckmann added that he believes that both series fans and video game fans will be really moved by this episode. Our actors, particularly in this episode, felt like they left a piece of their soul in this episode. I'm very proud of it. Museum, book it.
Yeah, I didn't
Museum
know.
episode 6.
After hearing that, I agree. It's not at the beginning. It's in episode 6.
But my thinking is to kind of go through the outline of the episode, roughly. I think we finish Seattle Day 2, which is the hospital. So we get, as we see in the trailer, both pictures here, Ellie confronting Nora, which is also, I'm so interested to see how they change, because something that I found so interesting of that scene in the game is as Ellie is starting to basically torture her, you can see Nora already getting infected by the spores. Like her face is like getting all veiny and shit. But again, they don't do it like that in the show. So I'm interested to see what's the weight there? What are the stakes in that scene? But yeah, so I expect that. Maybe we start to get into day 3 of going to the aquarium, but I don't think so. I kind of feel like that's kind of getting ahead of if we get all the way to day 3 by episode 6, we're getting 3 seasons of the show. There's no way we can get 4 seasons of this. And then, so going back to earlier, I kind of wondered if maybe episode 6 is where Joel dies, but I'm going to go back to thinking that that's where, what happens on episode 3. Also, I need to change my headphone real fast. I think it's dying.
Yeah,
but what do y'all think?
I think that definitely what they're referring to in the quote is the museum scene. And I think that is like where a lot of the heart and like love is going to be put into. I stand by, I think there's no way that his death is this late in the season. And I think that they showed Pedro a lot in the trailers to throw us off a little bit and to throw people off that maybe don't know what happens in the game. Because I do feel like, I've seen that argument here and there that like they show him so much in the trailer and like he's very present throughout. But I think that is, if anything, that's like a distraction. Jake Twitchen said I mentally blocked the aquarium. Yeah. That's so funny. But I don't know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. That was really it. I think I think that this puts a lot of emphasis on like the museum moment. I think that we start to get the like wind down a little bit or the wind up rather, but that's my overall thoughts.
Ryan asks, when do we get the pregnancy moida? That's a rough one. That's, I think, season 3, because that's at the aquarium. That's like right before day 3 ends for Ellie.
Which is a bummer, because we also won't get Abby Owen boat time.
Yeah.
And I hope it's as forceful. They were both open to it. No one was forcing anything on anybody in that scene, but gosh, they were very Brokeback Mountain of them, if I dare say.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they were fighting, but then I was like, oh, no, they're going to town.
I mean, Abby also says the line, I can't seem to quit you, Ennis Del Mar. So
I love that. That's a good one. Good line. Yeah. She's also Nut Country. I don't know. I did that to you.
But yeah, I think with what she's saying of it being a really beautiful story, like I said, I think that's the museum, but also with what Druckmann is saying, because the stuff with Nora is so like visceral. I hate using that word to describe a story beat, but it is like, because after that is also when Ellie really starts to kind of like come to terms with the decision she's making and starts to consider, maybe I need to not fully go through with this. She gets back to the theater and is like, has blood all over her and all that kind of stuff.
Anytime I see like a red light, like I, changed the color of this light behind me, it went out, unfortunately. Whenever like I'm changing colors, I see like a bright red light on anything, I think about this scene. So like just to put in perspective, like how much I didn't want to hit the button. And that would be one of those moments where I don't have to proceed going down that route that Ellie's going. So but
I think we have to get some of that rage from her somewhere, because I feel like we can't have the audience too much on her side. You know what I mean? Like I think you have to have that like push and pull throughout the whole season. But I don't think we get the aquarium stuff. I don't know. The more that I think about it, I think this is
enough. You don't even have to get the aquarium stuff yet to be upset with Ellie. Like this is already going to be making her question and us question, what is it worth it?
Yeah, that's true. I think
it's worth it. Let me work it. So yeah, that's what I think happens in episode 6. We'll see. There's probably something I'm missing here, but I think that all makes sense. Which brings us to the finale of season 2, episode 7. So I think because I think it's absurd, like I was kind of saying, to get through day 3 in 7 episodes. So I feel like the season is going to end with day 2, because in the game, day 2 also ends with the flashback of Ellie going to the hospital, learning about what Joel did, listening to the things, and then their confrontation of him getting there and her saying, you know, you swore, which we see in the trailer, which is in the bottom of this. So I feel like they probably expand that a little bit and also weave in the dance here. We probably see the dance before episode 7 too, like because we see it a couple times in the game. Maybe we see that in the first episode. Maybe that's partially in the first episode and we see like a bit of it there. But I feel like some of the fallout of that, like specifically, I forget the old dude's name, the racist guy Seth. I bet maybe like we get the fight, or not the fight, but when Joel comes to try to defend Ellie's honor and Ellie's like, fuck you, what the fuck? And then
I think that's in episode 1.
Yeah, I can see that being in episode 1, and then with this one, we see a little bit more of it, and then maybe part of the porch conversation, but that also feels crazy to me of like having the porch conversation already.
The game.
Yeah.
How could it be in the end of the show?
Yeah.
But also like it could, I don't know where this could fall. Because like, if anything, like some of these scenes like are perfect reflection sort of flashbacks for Ellie, just trying to, like you said with the museum, like trying to find a little bit of happiness, remember the good old times. And then here just reflecting on that conversation you have with Joel doesn't make sense here. It makes sense mostly for the end of the game where she's reflecting on something very similar. So like I
wonder, something I don't have here, but I wonder if episode 7 also, like if we're getting a new, like a C plot between the WLF and the Seraphites that has been happening throughout the season, and whatever that is, if we get some sort of conclusion to that here.
That'd be great. No more.
Well, we'll still get a lot of it next season.
I don't want any of it. Dang it.
But yeah, I do think I'm missing something here because even though there's 6 bullet points, one of them starts talking about season 3. So it's like they're for a finale of the biggest show on television, it's going to be more than 2 story beats. It's just I'm having trouble finding what those are based on where we land in episode 6. Maybe the hospital stuff with Nora is in episode 6. Hell, maybe we do start Seattle day 3, but it just, because something that you also have to consider here that I've spent an embarrassingly long amount of time thinking about is you have to end the season on on a conclusion that makes sense, whether that's a cliffhanger or not. And once day 3 starts, there isn't a good place to end a season until day 3 is over, and there's just not time to do that. What do you got?
I have an emergency pause request.
Oh yes,
emergency pause.
Because my mother is in the chat. Hello, Nancy. Welcome to the chat. My
Nancy.
mother.
How you doing, Nancy?
You don't know what happens in The Last of Us season 2, so you need to not listen any further.
Unless you want everything spoiled.
Yeah, we're talking about The Last of Us season 2, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then don't listen. But come back later because we're gonna talk about it later on. But yes, hello.
But yeah, I think ultimately a big thing that I land on with the finale for me is ending it with the rift of Joel and Ellie's relationship and having that, like, we finally get to the point with season 1, they end with Ellie asking him, like, do you swear? And he says yes. And there's that like twitch of like, Ellie probably doesn't believe him. We're going to eventually get an answer on what that is. And then with season 2, we end with that coming to fruition in its own way. It's not the end of the story arc, but now we go into season 3 wondering how are Ellie and Joel gonna, fix this issue, this massive rift. Because 1, he's dead, but 2, you know what I mean? So like figuring that out is, I feel like a strong end to season 2, not being able to get all the way to the end of Ellie's arc of the first half of the game with, we let you live and you wasted it with Abby in the theater, that kind of thing.
Shit, but it only sort of makes sense to have the theater be the end for this. Like, I just don't know any point. And not that it has to be a cliffhanger. I don't think it will be either. But it's got to be just something that it could just wrap up the story too, and not have to continue. But it's hard to do that with the second game.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that, unless they create a new situation or something else that makes sense. Like, I can't on the top. I need to like look up a list of like key moments so I'm not forgetting. But nothing's standing out to be a good end to season 2.
I mean, maybe because I was saying just a minute ago, like, I don't think that, or not that I don't think, I couldn't find like another story beat. So maybe that is the third story beat of episode 3 or of episode 7 is day 3 of, because day 3 isn't that long in the game. It's Ellie and Jesse. The idea is, let's go find Tommy, let's go home. Because with the way that episode or day 2 ends, Ellie is really coming to terms with like what she's doing and is having she is starting to kind of freak out, realize that she's going a bit too far. So she's like, you know what? Okay, let's just get Tommy. Let's get out of here. I don't want to take this further than I've already taken it. But then in the moment, she has an opportunity to go track down Abby, and she abandons Jesse. Jesse goes after Tommy. She gets to the aquarium pretty fast. And then the stuff with Mel and Owen happens. Jesse, Tommy get there, take her. So like, it could be in episode 7 because there's not that much. It's the kind of thing of, you can't cut much there once you start doing it. Like then it's getting to the theater. It's Abby getting there. So it's like, do we have 40 minutes to get through all that? I hope so, but maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know that happens.
I don't want it. And I don't want it to be rushed that much either. But I'm like, man, what do they do?
Yeah.
I want more time with it.
I don't know that y'all will be able to, really quick introduction. I just sent you the link to this. The end of this presentation has a beat
surprise?
for beat. No, not a surprise. It just has the second game beat for beat. So like if that's helpful to look at and think through.
Yeah.
Now that we've gotten through the main arcs of the season. So yeah, Kayla, where do you think that we end season 2? Do you think we get all the way to the end of day 3, or do you think we're going to stop somewhere sooner? Like I have guessed probably incorrectly.
I have a really hard time. I thought about this a lot of like what I felt would be a natural break, because I just feel like the way that the game ends is just so perfect and like poetic. And there's no way that happens in this season. And I have a hard time like thinking about what I would want it to be, what would make the most sense. I think that it's possible that we end with finding out, like with acknowledging that, like Ellie finding out what Joel did.
Yeah.
But I don't know that makes sense if he does die as early on as we think he does. I don't know if it makes sense having that much of a gap television wise in understanding the implications of that. I don't know. It's really tough for me. I'm having a hard time deciding what I think that the last episode would be. So I would love to hear Jerica's thoughts.
How do they reveal? How soon do they reveal? Because I know I was talking about earlier, like maybe half the season's Ellie, half the season's Abby. Which I still sort of lean towards, but now I'm just like, man, I need season 2 to be Abby. But then there's a whole 3-year gap or whatever. But where do y'all think we find out that it was Abby's dad? When do we find out why Abby did it? Do you think we find that out at all during the season? Or is that something that's left for next? Like, I know they might touch on it in her flashbacks, but do we get I don't know how...
Yeah.
I don't know where that works. Do we get it sooner rather than later?
I think I'm very torn on this.
I don't know.
I think I think it's either it's either this season or next season. Stupid answer, but I feel like it would make sense to have it be a few episodes in, like 4 or 5. But then also maybe part of the finale is starting to peel back the curtain of Abby, and maybe that's like, when we start to get it.
That'd be more of the, like, not the cliffhanger, but like, oh shit. Like, I can't wait to see more of her, and like, can they actually work things out?
Yeah.
Like, is there something that brings them together more than pushes them apart, like in the show?
Yeah. I do feel pretty strongly that whenever we find that out about Abby, it's either a cold open or it ends an episode. One of those two things happen where it's like, it's a big like punch start of like, hey, by the way, this is really important information, or we end it so that the audience has to talk about it for a week and start asking the questions that we all ask in the games. Like, do you think she was in the right? Do you think she was in the wrong? Like that kind of thing. And maybe that's how they end the second season. I don't know, because there's only so many moments that can end a season in the story and it be satisfying. And they must have come to this and said, okay, 7 episodes makes sense for a reason. This is the outline of the season of the story we're telling. And it's like, yeah, I feel like it's either the end of Ellie's timeline of we gave you a chance and you wasted it of Abby killing Jesse and all that stuff. Or it's something we can't think of, because I can't find what that other thing is, but it's absurd to me to get there already in 7 episodes.
Yeah. I think that like Squinky George has a good question, like not to go on a long tangent, but do you have an alternate theory craft basic storytelling beats of season 2 if they decide to wait to push back Joel's fate to the very end? No, because I think you came in on like more of the entail, but basically Patrick and I both think that it's happening in episode 3 and Jarek I think it's happening in episode 4. So both of us feel like it is going to be happening a little bit earlier in the episode. I just don't think there's a world where they do it at the last.
I'm going back on what I'm saying. I think this is a whole lot of Jackson buildup and drama and conflict and building characters up this season more than anything. I think we're getting too far into it. Like, there's no way thinking about what we're saying, like there's just so much that needs to be covered in 7 episodes and they're just not going to be able to do it. I'd be disappointed if this whole season is just Jackson. I'm not saying the whole season's going to be Jackson, but I think we get like 3 or 4, like half of the season is us.
Okay.
Rocking and rolling in Jackson. Shoot, here I go again.
Here we go
again.
Let's go.
We saw the whole horde, and I've talked about this, I think, with you, Kayla, but like we saw, and I had this, like, this would be a cool thing. The horde of, in the infected, like, just attacking Jackson. Like, what if they switch it up a little bit and how Abby gets thrown in the mix? They seek refuge in Jackson and end up staying in Jackson and being a part of that community for a little bit longer, or outsiders, but being part of it. I know they have surely they shot a scene at a lodge, because I saw like pictures of a set. But I don't know, like stuff like that could happen and they could expand the story further. But like, I will
say, so this next slide is messy. I kind of stopped making it look nice here, but
I think it looks great.
Right side middle image it looks like it could be Abby and Jackson.
Oh, you're right.
Sure.
And I feel like Jerica and I mentioned this at some point on one of our episodes somewhere.
Which one?
Right middle.
Right middle, Abby, the only Abby picture on the thing.
No, I thought that was her with the rifle, but I was like, wait, that's Ellie, but it sort of looked like her on a smaller screen. Oh, sure. I see what you mean. That could be her in Jackson, potentially. Because it can't be anything. I mean, she's wearing winter stuff, so it's definitely Jackson in some capacity, whether that's outside the city or inside the city. So I mean, that could be an interesting change.
She's not in her tank top.
I guess the thing that I keep coming back to though is going back to the episode 6 images of these are clearly end of day 2, Ellie at the hospital killing Nora. So unless they change the timeline and that's like a day 1 thing potentially, and like but it's like if we have half the season be Jackson and then that leaves, less than half the season for Ellie to get out the door, get to Seattle, and then get to this point of finding them at the hospital and killing Nora. And yeah, maybe they change it to where that's not at the hospital. It's something different. Maybe that's like her at the TV station or whatever, but with it being the red, like I feel like that's probably something that they don't change. But so yeah, I guess that the timeline, that's when I get lost of how that like structure could work if we've already seen this far into the game. And I do think this is the latest we've seen so far of the game is that moment.
Like, we got to come to an agreement here. Are they stretching the story, or are we getting through the theater? Like, I'll go. Obviously, y'all will have the majority, so I agree. I will lean that way and say, hey, they're gonna get to it. They're gonna.
You think whatever you want, girl.
Yeah, we don't have to come to an agreement as a podcast. We can all have our own.
I want to though. Like, I want to be able to land on like a solid prediction, or at least like see what we can think through. I just want to know where it ends. Where does it end?
The theater. I think it ends at the theater. That's my final prediction. I don't know.
I don't think it ends at the theater.
What do you think it ends? What's your gut tell you?
I feel like I'm probably wrong, but I feel like it ends with Ellie finding out that Joel lied to her.
I like that.
I do like that though. I do.
And that's sort of maybe fuck.
But also part of my gut thinks that they move that up. Like, I think that, I don't know, part of me also thinks that like if we're right and he is killed earlier, I feel like maybe having that nugget of information earlier is also helpful for the viewers. I don't know. But also I think it is also possible that you don't learn. My gut says that you get Joel's death in episode 3, and then it cold opens on episode 4 with you finding out who Abby is early on.
Sure.
But then I still don't know exactly where the ending fits in there. Though, so
I do think, like, so Squanky asks, I wonder if there's a way to tell the story with, or he says, I wonder if there's a way to tell the story with Ellie in Seattle without the Joel reveal yet, with some lies by omission, which we kind of talked about earlier. If they could make that work, I think that could be super interesting, of like the audience not understanding why Ellie's in Seattle. She's doing all these things. And then, she's there because Joel was murdered. But it's like, the more I think through that, the more I start to find holes to poke through of like, I don't know. There's just like big beats that I think would need to happen to get to that
it would be difficult to be that confused as a viewer that for most of the season.
Right.
To be like, I'm so tired of watching her do dumb stuff and I don't know why she's so angry.
And like when you think of like story theory of like structuring a story as an outline, you need the inciting incident, and the inciting incident of this is Joel being killed. So I feel like that's why I won't even be surprised if it is episode 1, and then we just, they do more flashback stuff throughout to get us there. Because think about that, like what a way to get fucking buzz on social media that we come back and the daddy of the world is dead by the end of episode 1. Like everyone's gonna be fucking talking about it, so it could be episode 1.
Yeah,
that is true. I back in the day I did say I either thought it was episode 1 or the episode 7. I thought it was either the very beginning or the very end.
We both sort of landed on it's either gonna happen very early or very late, like one or the other.
We've always said that.
And then here I am on this episode 2 years later saying it's going to happen in the middle. And they're going to go to the museum in the first episode. Which
this is one of my favorite parts of this fandom, though, is how much fun it is to like theorize and stuff like this. It's so much fun.
How cool is that this story is that deep and that well done that we big fans can't even tell you how this season's going to like shake up and who's actually what the last episode's going to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hate that you listened to that and said, I don't know.
You never. How often do you get to do that with like one of your favorite franchises with your best friends here?
Oh, stop
You get to theorize about what you want, your hopes and dreams. I think like, and one thing to know too, if you're watching this and you're maybe you didn't see season 1 of ClickerBait and Patrick is new to the show, but like I think me and Jerica have been pretty open. Like I think in the first season we were pretty open to like what they were going to be giving us. Like both of us are, for me, I'm not a super harsh critic. Like I think like the vision that they're giving us with the show, like I trust the vision. I trust where they're going. I think like they showed us in season 1 what they can do, what they can add to the story. Yes, there was some things omitted that I think would have been nice to have. And like, that was our whole episode 1. Like if you go back to last week where we recapped season 1 of the show, but overall, I'm really excited. I think that they will do it justice. I think that we will be happy with what they decide to do. That's my personal opinion. Yeah.
Squanky also asks, it's a question for me as a certified Leftovers sicko, which by the way, if you've never seen The Leftovers on HBO, change your life. It's maybe the best show ever made. Will they use Take Me On in the show more effectively than The Leftovers? Yes, they sure will.
Also a big fan of The Leftovers.
That's
Never
so
seen
good.
it.
One of the reasons I'm also enjoying The White Lotus right now.
Oh yeah.
I am watching that, but I'm not caught up. I'm only on season 2. So I'll keep you updated. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I can't.
We're so
here's
close.
here's the thing. The fact that this show is, or this story rather, is so compelling that it inspired me to spend literally like 12 hours on this at least.
Make
like,
sure you
such
put
a good
it on
job.
it's just so
on a
exciting
thumb
to
drive
me.
so they can play it at your funeral too. These are things
There you
that
go.
I like. I would say I'd want this at my funeral. I still might say, let me make a copy of this.
Yeah.
So this will also be up on a presentation next to my PS5 that my ashes will be in.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
We should have your ashes somehow formed into a disc that you can put into
That'd
the
be
PlayStation
so
5.
cool.
Yo.
It's like compressed, and it plays like my favorite music from my skin dust somehow.
Yeah. Play my favorite music from my skin dust is crazy. Is the craziest thing that's ever been said on a podcast. But yeah, join the Discord if you want. If you want to look at this presentation, I'll share it in the Discord.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I just can't wait to talk details with you guys.
I
when
can't
this
wait
comes
to
out.
see what actually happens.
Me too.
Oh my god. And you guys definitely like come along with us. Like I think Squink, I forget who it was that asked earlier, like what our structure is going to be. Just as a reminder, what we're going to be doing is JK Games is taking a little bit of a pause. So this is going to be our permanent spot for ClickerBait until the season is over. Monday nights, 8:30 Central, 9:30 EST. And we're going to be recapping the Sunday episode the next day. So we'll be here. We'll be prepared. Patrick has already, I'm committing him to a slideshow every single time.
No.
No. This has been great though. I thank you for putting this together. It absolutely professional.
It was
grade.
awesome. So
Hell
good.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
It was sincerely my pleasure.
Oh,
Wow. And I did drop the Discord link in the chat if anyone wants to join that's not already in it. Because we also, I imagine, will probably create threads for every episode so that if you're behind, you won't get spoiled.
Yes.
You can opt in to be in them. And also, don't be a jerk and don't spoil it for other people that don't know. And if you do, you're the worst kind of person.
Yeah.
And don't come back.
yeah, you're not welcome here.
But
Scram!
I definitely, does anybody here know anyone personally that hasn't played the game that is going to be watching the season?
Oh, for sure.
You do? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to know like their react. I do. Nancy, actually, who was here earlier, my mother, she is one. But
I've been warning
I'm very
them,
curious.
like, be so careful online. Because
Well,
it's gonna be spoiled.
Both people that I had never played, one of them didn't even have a PlayStation, but based on what I had told them that they should play the game before the show comes out for the best experience, both played beginning to end both games. Somebody,
Nice.
one of them bought a PS5 just to play this game.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't know anybody else. The rest of the people I know, gamers.
There are actually no other people.
I don't know anyone ever.
We don't know anybody.
Well, thanks everybody. Thanks you two for being such great co-hosts. What do we know what we're doing next week? I forget. Have we decided on this? Because we have 2 more weeks until the show
It's pretty
actually
much
comes out.
I think we landed on at least some discussion about what, which I don't know, based on how this went, we can't even get past season 2, but talking about season 3 and beyond.
Oh yeah, hopes and dreams.
Game 3 and beyond. Maybe have some fun with where can the story go from here. Once
Yeah,
again, a
that's
big
true.
episode for the gamers out there, not the ones that haven't, played the game. But
Maybe we'll force Kayla to watch all of The Leftovers, and we'll just talk about The Leftovers
hell
next
yeah,
week.
I would love to rewatch
Hey,
that.
I'm
It's
down.
been a minute. All right, guys, that was fun.
Bye!
Catch you next time. Bye.
There we go. Goodbye.